What if one of the most overlooked tools for a healthier metabolism was not a pill, a powder, or a punishing workout, but a tiny layer of fat already sitting inside your body? Most people hear the word fat and immediately think of something they want to lose. They think of a soft belly, a thicker waist, the underside of the arm, the hips, the thighs, or the extra fold that appears when a shirt fits too tightly. That kind of fat can feel frustrating, especially when you are trying to improve your health. But the truth is more interesting than that. Your body does not have only one kind of fat. Some fat mainly stores extra energy. Some fat can behave more like a heater, using energy and producing warmth. And that difference matters. The storage type is usually called white fat. White fat is not automatically bad. You need some of it. It protects organs, stores energy for later, helps with hormones, and gives the body a backup fuel supply. But when white fat keeps building, especially around the organs deep inside the abdomen, it becomes a different conversation. That deeper abdominal fat is called visceral fat, and it is strongly linked with poor metabolic health. Higher amounts of visceral fat are associated with insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, fatty liver risk, cardiovascular problems, and several disease patterns that become more common with age. The challenging part is that visceral fat is not always obvious from the outside. Two people can wear the same size or show the same number on a bathroom scale, yet have very different fat distribution inside the body. One person may carry more fat under the skin, while another may carry more around the organs. That is why weight alone can mislead you. The scale can tell you mass, but it cannot tell you whether your waistline, muscle, hydration, and internal fat are moving in a healthier direction. This is also why the mirror can confuse people. Subcutaneous fat, the fat under the skin, is the fat you can pinch. Visceral fat sits deeper, behind the abdominal wall, close to the intestines, liver, pancreas, and other organs. A person may look only slightly heavier, but carry more internal fat than expected. Another person may look softer on the outside, but have a healthier internal profile. This is why the goal should not be simply to hate every inch of body fat. The goal is to reduce the harmful pattern, protect muscle, and improve how the body handles energy. Now, here is where the story becomes hopeful. Your body also contains a different kind of fat called brown fat. Brown fat is not the soft, jiggly storage fat people usually notice in the mirror. It is thinner, more hidden, and far more metabolically active. Instead of mainly storing calories, brown fat can burn fuel to produce heat. This process is called thermogenesis. Think of it like switching on a small internal furnace. When brown fat becomes more active, it uses fuel, and part of that fuel can come from stored fat. Brown fat gets its color because it is rich in mitochondria. Mitochondria are the tiny energy-producing structures inside cells. In brown fat, there are a lot of them, and they contain iron-rich components involved in energy production. Under a microscope, this gives brown fat a darker appearance than white fat. White fat looks pale because it is dominated by large storage droplets. Brown fat looks darker because it is built for energy use. Adults do have brown fat, although not in the same amount as babies. It tends to be found in areas such as the sides of the neck, near the collarbones, around the upper chest, between the shoulder blades, and in smaller amounts deeper in the body. There is also a middle category, often called beige fat. Beige fat can develop within white fat under certain conditions and act more like brown fat by becoming more energy burning. So when people talk about activating brown fat, they are usually talking about supporting this thermogenic system, brown fat and brown-like activity that helps the body use energy more efficiently. This does not mean brown fat is a magic switch for instant weight loss. It does not mean one food can melt belly fat overnight. The human body is more complex than that. But brown fat is part of a real metabolic system, and certain lifestyle factors in foods may support its activity. That makes it worth understanding, especially if your goal is not just to weigh less, but to improve body composition, reduce harmful fat patterns, and support healthier metabolism over time. The easiest way to picture it is this. White fat is like a storage tank. It stores extra fuel from the calories you eat. Brown fat is more like a burner. When the burner is active, it draws fuel and releases heat. The body does not run this system for vanity. It uses it as part of temperature control and energy regulation. But because the system uses energy, researchers have become interested in whether supporting brown fat activity may help improve metabolic health, waist measures, and the way the body manages fuel. Before we talk about foods, let's correct one of the biggest mistakes people make. Many people judge progress only by the scale. If the number goes down, they feel successful. If the number stays the same, they think they failed. But your body can be changing in meaningful ways even when the scale is stubborn. You may be losing internal fat, improving waist circumference, gaining or preserving muscle, improving blood sugar control, or lowering inflammation. Those changes may not show up immediately as a dramatic weight drop. That is why waist measurement, strength, energy, lab markers, and body composition can matter more than one daily weigh-in. A regular scale cannot separate muscle from fat. It cannot show visceral fat. It cannot tell you whether a new habit is improving your internal health. Some home body composition tools use bioelectrical impedance to estimate fat, muscle, water, and sometimes visceral fat trends. These tools are not perfect, and they should not replace medical testing, but they can help some people track patterns over time. The key is to use trends, not panic over one reading. A better question is not, how much do I weigh today? A better question is, what is changing inside my body over weeks and months? Is your waist moving down? Are your meals more satisfying? Is your blood sugar improving? Are your triglycerides, cholesterol, or blood pressure moving in a better direction with your clinician's guidance? Are you getting stronger instead of weaker? These markers give you a fuller picture of metabolic progress than one number on the floor. Now, let's look at food. Food does not work like a drug that forces the body into a guaranteed outcome. But food carries bioactive compounds, fiber, protein, minerals, and plant chemicals that can influence metabolism, inflammation, gut health, and energy balance. Some foods are especially interesting because research suggests they may support thermogenesis or brown fat activity. The first example is chili peppers. The heat in chili peppers comes from a natural compound called capsaicin. Capsaicin is the reason hot peppers feel spicy on your tongue. It interacts with heat-sensitive receptors in the mouth and digestive tract, sending signals through the nervous system. That signal is one reason your body may feel warmer, sweat a little, or experience a temporary lift in energy use after spicy food. In research settings, capsaicin and related compounds have been studied for effects on thermogenesis, appetite, and fat metabolism. This does not mean everyone should start eating extremely spicy meals. If you have reflux, ulcers, irritable bowel symptoms, medication interactions, or sensitivity to spicy food, you need to be careful. But for people who tolerate it, adding chili flakes, fresh chilies, or a modest amount of chili sauce to meals may be one simple way to support a more thermogenic eating pattern. The goal is not pain. The goal is a sustainable habit. The practical move is small. Add a pinch of chili flakes to eggs, beans, soup, roasted vegetables, or tomato sauce. Use fresh chili in a stir fry. Choose a hot sauce with simple ingredients instead of one loaded with sugar. If your stomach complains, back off. A health habit only works when your body can tolerate it. Another food people love is coffee. Coffee is famous for caffeine, but caffeine is not the only interesting compound in the cup. Coffee also contains polyphenols, including chlorogenic acids, which are being studied for their effects on metabolism, blood sugar regulation, and fat processing. Caffeine can stimulate the nervous system and may increase energy expenditure temporarily. Some research has linked coffee intake with lower body fat measures or smaller waist circumference, although the results depend on the population, the amount, and what people add to the coffee. This is important. Coffee with a large amount of sugar, flavored syrup, or heavy cream is not the same as plain coffee. If your morning coffee is basically dessert in a cup, the metabolic picture changes. But black coffee, lightly prepared coffee, or even decaffeinated coffee may offer useful polyphenols without a high calorie load. Decaf matters because it reminds us that coffee is more than caffeine. Some people are sensitive to caffeine, especially if they have anxiety, palpitations, high blood pressure, insomnia, or certain medical conditions. For them, decaf may be a better option. The smartest coffee habit is boring, and boring often works. Keep the cup simple. Avoid turning it into a liquid pastry. Stop early enough in the day that it does not damage your sleep, because poor sleep can work against metabolism. And if caffeine makes your heart race, makes you shaky, or worsens anxiety, listen to that signal. Next, think about beans, especially white beans. Beans are not flashy. They do not come with the marketing excitement of a new supplement. But they are one of the most practical metabolic foods you can eat. Beans provide fiber, resistant starch, plant-based protein, and minerals. Their fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Their protein supports fullness and muscle maintenance. Their carbohydrate is packaged with fiber, which slows digestion compared with refined starches. Why does that matter for fat loss and waist size? Because better satiety, steadier blood sugar, and a healthier gut environment can all support metabolic health. Some studies have found that regular bean intake is associated with improved weight-related or waist-related outcomes. Beans may also influence hormones and gut-derived signals that interact with energy use. If you are trying to reduce visceral fat, a food that supports fullness, gut health, and blood sugar control deserves attention. A practical target is not complicated. You can add beans to soup, salads, stews, rice bowls, vegetable dishes, or blended dips. If beans cause gas or bloating, start with small portions. Rinse canned beans well and increase gradually. People with kidney disease, certain digestive conditions, or potassium restrictions should ask a healthcare professional about the right amount. There is another reason beans matter. They often replace less helpful foods. When you add beans to a meal, you may naturally eat fewer refined carbohydrates or processed meats. You get more chewing, more fiber, more volume, and more fullness. That combination can support a calorie balance without making the meal feel tiny or punishing. Now let's talk about onions. Onions belong to the allium family, along with garlic, shallots, scallions, and leeks. These foods are used in many traditional eating patterns, including Mediterranean and Asian cuisines, and they bring more than flavor. Onions contain polyphenols, such as quercetin, especially in the outer layers. Quercetin has been studied for anti-inflammatory activity and possible metabolic effects. Some research has explored onion extracts or quercetin-rich foods in people with metabolic syndrome, a cluster that may include larger waist circumference, higher blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, and abnormal blood lipids. The point is not that onion is a cure for metabolic syndrome. It is not. But onions can be part of a pattern that supports better health. They add flavor without relying on excess sugar or heavy sauces. They bring plant compounds that may help regulate inflammation. And when used regularly with vegetables, beans, tomatoes, fish, whole grains, and healthy fats, they can make a more protective eating pattern easier to maintain. One practical tip is to avoid wasting too much of the onion when you peel it. The papery skin itself is not usually eaten in normal cooking, but the outer edible layers are valuable. Do not cut away thick chunks just to make the onion look perfect. Keep as much of the edible outer layer as you reasonably can, because that area tends to contain more quercetin. Onions are also useful because they make healthy food taste better. A bowl of beans becomes more satisfying with onions. A tomato sauce becomes deeper with onions and garlic. Vegetables become easier to eat when they are cooked with aromatic foods. That matters because the best diet is not the one that sounds impressive for 1 week. It is the one you can repeat. Finally, tomatoes deserve a place in this conversation. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, a red carotenoid that has been studied for antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. Lycopene is one reason tomato-rich eating patterns are often discussed in relation to cardiovascular and prostate health research. Tomatoes may also support metabolic health as part of an overall diet rich in plants. Some studies have looked at tomatoes, tomato juice, or tomato products in relation to weight, waist circumference, cholesterol, blood sugar, and inflammatory markers. The results are not a promise that 1 tomato a day will transform the body. But tomatoes are low in calories, high in flavor, and easy to use. They can replace heavier sauces, improve meal satisfaction, and provide lycopene in a simple form. You can eat fresh tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato paste, salsa, soups, or cooked tomato dishes. Interestingly, lycopene becomes easier for the body to absorb when tomatoes are cooked and eaten with a small amount of fat, such as olive oil. That is one reason traditional tomato-based sauces can be more than comfort food when prepared thoughtfully. One fresh tomato, a cup of tomato sauce, or a spoonful of tomato paste can all help bring tomato compounds into your diet. Be careful with tomato products that come with a lot of added sugar or salt. A tomato-based food can be healthy, but the label still matters. Choose simple sauces when you can. Use tomato paste to build flavor in soups, beans, and stews. Keep fresh tomatoes on the counter if you enjoy them, because cold storage can dull their texture and flavor. So what is the bigger message? Stop thinking of fat as one single enemy. Your body is not that simple. White fat stores energy. Too much visceral white fat can become harmful. Brown fat and brown-like fat can use energy and generate heat. Muscle burns energy too, and preserving muscle is crucial as you age. Gut health, blood sugar control, sleep, stress, movement, and food quality all interact with this system. If you want to support healthier metabolism, think in patterns. Add foods that help rather than only obsessing about foods to remove. Use chili peppers if you tolerate them. Enjoy coffee in a way that doesn't turn it into a sugar bomb. Eat beans regularly for fiber and plant protein. Use onions and other alliums for flavor and polyphenols. Include tomatoes or tomato products for lycopene and meal quality. These are not exotic foods. They are affordable, familiar, and easy to build into daily meals. At the same time, do not expect any single food to overcome a lifestyle that is working against you. Brown fat activation is only one piece of metabolism. Sleep deprivation, chronic stress, very low activity, excessive alcohol, ultra-processed foods, and loss of muscle can all push the body in the wrong direction. Food works best when it is combined with movement, resistance training, balanced meals, enough protein, and consistent medical care when needed. A simple starting plan could look like this. Measure your waist once every few weeks. Track your energy, strength, and how your clothes fit. Build meals around plants, protein, and fiber. Add beans several times a week. Use onions and tomatoes often. If you drink coffee, keep it moderate and avoid loading it with sugar. If you enjoy spice, use chili in a way your stomach tolerates. Then give your body time. Metabolic change is usually gradual. The goal is not to chase heat, sweat, or a dramatic sensation after every meal. The goal is to build a body environment where energy is handled better. That means fewer blood sugar spikes, better fullness, more muscle protection, and less pressure to snack all day. Brown fat may be one helpful pathway, but the whole metabolic picture still depends on consistency. This is where people often get trapped by extremes. They hear one exciting fact about capsaicin, caffeine, quercetin, or lycopene and turn it into a miracle claim. That is not how health works. These compounds can support useful biological processes, but they are not substitutes for balanced meals, physical activity, sleep, medical treatment, or a realistic calorie pattern without making life miserable. Think of them as tools, not magic. You also do not need perfection. You do not need to eat all 4 foods every single day. Start with one practical habit you can repeat today. Add beans twice this week. Replace a sugary coffee with a simpler one. Cook onions into dinner. Add tomato paste to a sauce. Small choices repeated many times often beat dramatic rushed plans that collapse by the weekend. If you want a simple plate, picture this. A bean-based soup with onions, tomatoes, and a little chili. A salad with white beans, chopped tomato, onion, herbs, and olive oil. Eggs with salsa and beans. A tomato stew with garlic, onions, and lentils. These meals are not extreme. They simply combine fiber, plant compounds, protein, and flavor in a way that supports the body instead of fighting it. And please remember this. If you have diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, digestive disease, cancer, uncontrolled blood pressure, pregnancy, a history of eating disorders, or you take medications that affect blood sugar, blood pressure, blood thinning, or appetite, Talk with a qualified healthcare professional before making major diet changes. Educational videos can give you ideas, but they cannot diagnose you, personalize your plan, or replace your clinician. The exciting part is that you do not have to fight your body. You can learn how it works. You can support the systems that protect you. You can shift attention away from shame and towards strategy. Brown fat is one example of that strategy. It reminds us that the body is not just a storage unit for calories. It is a living metabolic system, responding every day to what you eat, how you move, how you sleep, and how consistently you care for it. So the next time you think about body fat, do not only ask, how do I get rid of it? Ask a better question. How do I improve the way my body uses energy? That question leads to smarter choices, better habits, and a more realistic path toward a healthier waistline and stronger metabolism.